For staying with us here on Newsfeed AM. The search for South Africa's next National Director of Public Prosecutions enters a crucial phase this week. Interviews with 6 shortlisted candidates will take place on Wednesday and Thursday as the current NDPP advocate Shamila Batohi prepares to retire next month. Now, among those in the spotlight is former NDPP Menzi Simelane, returning to the process despite a cloud of controversy that marks his exit some years ago. Let's get you a sense of what's at stake here. We're joined by Oxtoby. He's a researcher at Freedom Under Law. Chris, thanks very much for your time. And I want to just jump straight into the issues around Menzi Simelane, which go back quite far, right? We can trace it back to 2009, when he was first appointed as head of the NPA, and when that appointment was set aside by the Constitutional Court.
Yes, that's right. I mean, this is, as you say, an issue that was very topical at the time, but some people may have forgotten. So I do think it's worth just, reminding oneself and for people to reacquaint themselves with what actually happened around his previous appointment. As you say, he was appointed for a short time as the national director before that appointment was overturned. And the issue really stems back to findings that were made by the Ginwala Commission of Inquiry that had been set up to look at the relationship between the then National Director of Public Prosecutions, Vusi Pikoli, and President Mbeki, Justice Minister Mbandla at the time. It was a fraught relationship. There were challenges. People might remember the attempts to arrest the then Police Commissioner, Jackie Selebi, were occurring around that time. And there was considerable tension between the executive and the then National Director of Public Prosecutions, which then resulted in this inquiry chaired by the former Speaker, Frene Ginwala, being set up.
Yeah.
And Simelane at that time was the Director General of the Department of Justice, and he was responsible for assembling and presenting the government's case. Now, the Commission ultimately found that a lot of the allegations against Pikoli couldn't be sustained, and there were numerous adverse findings against Simelane, who gave evidence at the inquiry. And I mean, to name just 2 of the most serious of those, he was found to have been responsible for drafting a letter which the Commission said interfered with the prosecutorial independence of the NPA, and he was found that he had failed to disclose a legal opinion which confirmed Pikoli's version of one of the issues in dispute, which amounted to adverse findings against his honesty and his credibility. So the Ginwala Commission made those findings. They've never been overturned to this day. And the legal challenge that followed that, in the legal challenge that followed that, the Constitutional Court confirmed that the Ginwala findings were sufficiently serious that the fact that they hadn't been taken into account meant that Simelane's appointment was invalid and had to be set aside. So we're talking some extremely serious allegations to be made for someone in this kind of position of this importance.
No, absolutely. They are incredibly serious. And given the state, we just need to look at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry to talk about the state of the criminal justice system in our country. The position of NDPP is paramount. There's that saying, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. None of us are blameless, I suppose, at the end of the day. The scales will tip one way or the other. But there shouldn't be even a whiff of impropriety. That's the ideal for the position of NDPP.
Absolutely. And the fact that we have everything going on in the country that we do at the moment, I mean, just on the headline segment before we came on, we saw the childcare inquiry, we saw the issues arising from the Madlanga Commission, there's the ad hoc parliamentary commission. The criminal justice system is under extreme pressure at the moment. And it's an entirely thankless job, I think, for the new national director to be coming into. But that absolutely doesn't mean that we can afford to relax our standards and to overlook concerns about candidates that there might be. It means that we have to be extra vigilant. about who gets appointed to this position. And we absolutely cannot afford to have someone with question marks about their integrity in this position, because this is going to be, I think, one of the most important roles in the country in the coming years, as we try to make sure that the rule of law and the foundations of our constitutional democracy hold firm.
So I suppose the question then becomes, Chris, given the climate in the country at the moment, the process to shortlist these candidates, these 6 candidates, given the question marks around the character of Menzi Simelane, how did he make it to the shortlisted candidates?
Well, that's a very good question. And I think it points to an underlying issue about how the appointments are done, and the fact that this process of a panel advising the president is an ad hoc one that doesn't actually have a basis in legislation. Technically, under the Constitution, it's the president's prerogative acting as the head of the national executive, so there is cabinet input, but it's the president's prerogative as to who they appoint. And now, for both the previous appointment and the current one, the president has chosen to make use of this advisory panel, which I do think is a good idea in principle, because it theoretically should allow greater input into the process, and it should give greater public transparency to the process, which would both be good things. But the fact that it is being done very much on an ad hoc basis suggests that we have to ask questions about what criteria were used for shortlisting candidates. If a panel is determining that as they go, we run the risk of inconsistencies from one process to another, and of, as in this case, questionable appointment decisions. I don't know exactly what the panel was thinking of with this shortlisting decision. The statement that was made at the time that the 6 candidates were announced said that they were listing the candidates who had met the minimum requirements. Now, one of the requirements that's very clearly set out is that the national director must be a fit and proper person. And everything in the findings of the Ginwala Commission and what the Constitutional Court confirmed raises serious and fundamental questions about whether Menzi Simelane is indeed a fit and proper person. So I do think that going forward, if we are going to be having this process of an advisory panel interviewing candidates forming part of the appointment process, it's going to need to be formalized in some way, more than it is at the moment, to avoid this kind of situation happening in future.
Yeah, of course, the other issue is as well that Simelane has been found guilty. It was a while ago. It was 8 years ago, I believe, in 2017, when he was found guilty of professional misconduct by the Johannesburg Society of Advocates during what he called an extensive and unfairly extended disciplinary process, right? The body then, this is the Johannesburg Society of Advocates, wanted him to, or applied for him to be struck off the roll, said they would apply for him to be struck off the roll, but we now know that they only did so in October of this year.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the fact of that finding against him is another factor that, again, does bear on his candidacy and does have to be taken into account. And also, just to add, there was a further finding at the time following the Ginwala Commission by the Public Service Commission, which recommended disciplinary action against him, but which the Justice Minister at the time declined to follow. So there are numerous findings beyond those in the Ginwala Commission that reflect adversely on his candidacy. As for why the actual striking off application has taken so long, I don't know what the answer to that is. It is unfortunate. It is curious. As you say, there was an adverse finding by the disciplinary committee that considered the complaint against him, and for whatever reason, the society has not brought an application to strike him off for some 8 years, I believe it is. Now, exactly what the reason for that delay is not clear. What that delay is going to mean for whether or not he is eventually struck off the roll will remain to be seen. He's obviously raising that as a counter to the application. But I think none of that means that those who are deciding on the appointment of the new national director can simply afford to overlook the conduct that was found to be the basis for him breaching professional rules. There are additional adverse findings against him. They echo several of the findings of the Ginwala Commission, and they would have to be taken into account, even if he is ultimately not struck off because of the delay or for any other reason.
Yeah. So I don't suppose you care to comment then, Chris, about the other candidates. And I know that Freedom Under Law would have extensive knowledge of the Western Cape Prosecutions head, Nicolette Bell. I'm just going to read out the names of the other candidates. Her deputy is also shortlisted, Adrian Mop, the former NPA investigating director, Hermione Cronje, her successor, Andrea Johnson, and then the chair of the Global Coalition to Fight Financial Crime, Xolisile Kanyile. It looks like an impressive list of mostly women, which is always a good thing in my view. Where does Freedom Under Law stand in terms of, which candidate would suit a position of this magnitude?
So the first thing I would say on that is that we've particularly focused our comment on this process on Menzi Simelane because he is in a unique situation of all the candidates for having these adverse findings against him from the Ginwala Commission, from having the Constitutional Court set aside his previous appointment. So those raise very particular and unique concerns among the candidates. So our focus has very much been on being concerned that those issues are properly considered, are properly taken into account. We don't take a particular view on any of the other candidates individually. What I would say is that all the issues that we've already spoken about why the position is so important, will emphasize that the panel does need to be very rigorous, very careful in making sure that all the candidates are closely scrutinized and that the best possible candidate for the position is identified.
Yeah.
Which one of those is going to be the case? I will let's reserve judgment and see how the process goes. And of course, remember that the panel's input is merely advisory to the president, so the president does retain the final decision.
Yeah, so Wednesday and Thursday this week is when those all-important interviews will happen. Just to give our viewers a sense of the panel that will be making this decision, it'll be chaired by the Justice Minister, Mameloko Kubai, and then the panel then includes the chairperson of the SA Human Rights Commission, the Commission for Gender Equality, the Auditor General of South Africa, the Public Service Commission chair, a representative from the Black Lawyers Association, and a representative of the National Association of Democratic Lawyers. It's going to have to be a rigorous, no-holds-barred interview process.
It is, absolutely. And I would just say one further thing on the panel. And I'm not sure exactly what the background of the two lawyers from Black Lawyers Association and Nadel is, but the one thing that does strike one when you hear that list is there doesn't appear to be anyone with particular deep expertise or knowledge of the NPA. There's I don't see a former prosecutor or anyone like that on that list. So look, having external input and broader perspectives is a good thing, but it is also, I think, going to be necessary to have insiders' perspectives on exactly what that role involves. And I think this goes back to the point I made earlier that perhaps if this process of using a panel is going to be one that is used in the future for these appointments, it needs to be more formalized in terms of who is on it rather than a different composition of the panel coming up each time.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely. It boggles the mind that there isn't someone who would have real insight into the workings and the demands of the position of NDPP.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, subject to anything in the background of the BLA or Nadel members, I don't know the background of those particular members. So possibly there is something in there. But even if there is, that leaves 3 to 4 other members of the panel without that kind of knowledge. It is definitely a concern given the importance of the position and given the challenges that the institution is facing, which, as we know, are extremely serious.
Absolutely. Well, the Justice Department, I believe, has said that any objections can be raised through the department and on any of the candidates. So that's probably going to be something that the panel will also have sight of. Chris, let me thank you for your time. This is an important discussion. The next National Director of Public Prosecutions, who will it be? Freedom Under Law researcher Chris Oxtoby. Thanks for joining us.